Here we will talk about the eye for our special sense. So starting off with some accessory structures, we're going to see eyelashes, conjunctiva, and lacrimal glands. Eyelashes, as you know, are the nice little hairs that we have on our eyelids. These are helping to prevent any foreign matter from reaching the eye itself. Conjunctiva is going to be the covering of the inner surfaces of the eyelids, and lacrimal glands are going to be our glands producing tears. Tears are going to help keep the eye clean, supply some nutrients. We're also going to have some antibacterial enzyme. Okay, so here we can see all those. Eyelashes, eyebrows also are going to help prevent foreign matter from entering the eye. Lacrimal glands we will see right here. And then extrinsic eye muscles are for moving the eye themselves. Okay, palpebral muscles are going to be moving the eyelid, so helping to raise the eyelid and open the eye. Extrinsic eye muscles are responsible for moving the eye. Conjunctiva, again, that thin membrane that is going to cover the interior surface as well as part of the sclera. When conjunctiva becomes infected or irritated, this is when we get conjunctivitis, or more commonly known as pink eye. Okay, the tarsal plate is going to be a fold of some connective tissue, and this is giving the eyelid its form. Okay, containing rows of sebaceous glands. It's going to keep the eyelids from sticking to each other. So here we have our first look at the structure of the eye. This is going to be the eye itself. We're going to see some different layers. So some extrinsic eye muscles that are going to help with movement. And then we have the sclera is going to be the white outer portion of the eye that we'll see. Okay, lacrimal apparatus, so how tears form and then drain. So we have lacrimal glands producing the tears and the superior lateral portion of the eye. And then we're going to enter ducts, move across the eye to the medial area, enter the puncta into the canaliculi, which will enter a lacrimal sac, and then into the nasolacrimal ducts, moving into the nasal cavity. So seen here. So we are produced here, and to be able to wash across the entire eye, we need to drain on the opposite side in the medial area. So 6 extrinsic eye muscles. We saw which 3 cranial nerves control them. Cranial nerve 3, 4, and 6, if you remember. But the eye is going to have 2 tunics or coats. We have a fibrous and vascular. The fibrous tunic or fibrous layer is going to consist of the cornea and sclera. They are consistent with each other or continuous with each other. The cornea is clear to allow light through. The sclera is the white portion of our eye. The vascular tunic is going to consist of choroid, ciliary body, and iris. We will look at each of these in a little. Here, now that we know, the white is the sclera. Then as we move to the anterior of the eye, it becomes the cornea, which protrudes anteriorly, and then back to the sclera. Just internal to the sclera is going to be the vascular layer, and then the iris is the colored portion of the eye. Ciliary body is found there. Okay, so here is another slide explaining these layers. The choroid is going to be blood flow and lymphatics for the retina. iris is going to be regulating the size of the pupil and allowing a certain amount of light in. Ciliary body is controlling the shape of the lens, which is going to help focus the light. So the passage of light is going to pass through the cornea first, into the anterior chamber of the anterior cavity, past the iris through the pupil. The pupil is not an actual structure, it is a void of space. And then it will pass into the posterior chamber of the anterior cavity, then through the lens, where it will focus on the back of the eye after passing through the vitreous chamber on the fovea centralis. Okay, so here's a closer look. As briefly mentioned, there is going to be an anterior and posterior cavity to the eye. The anterior cavity contains aqueous humor, and it has two chambers, anterior and posterior chamber. So anterior chamber is going to be from the cornea to the iris, posterior from the iris to the lens. And the posterior cavity will be the vitreous chamber, or containing the vitreous body. We'll see this is more of a gelatin-like substance. So that aqueous humor in the anterior cavity, it is going to constantly be produced and replenished and move from the posterior chamber to the anterior chamber, where it will be reabsorbed. If this is improperly functioning, we can start to develop glaucoma. Again, the iris controlling the size of the pupil. So we have constriction. This is going to be from parasympathetic innervation. Dilation is going to be sympathetic. We have two arrangements of muscle for the iris. We have circular and radial. Circular is going to close the pupil. Radial will pull and open the pupil. The retina is where we're going to find light-sensitive cells, photoreceptors, where we will actually detect light and turn it into electrical signals for detection. But the retina is going to line posterior 3/4 of the inner eye, and we see this with an ophthalmoscope. The optic nerve is also going to be visible. The optic disc is where the optic nerve begins. It is also known as a blind spot because we have no photoreceptors found here. The macula luda is the exact center of the retina. In its center is the fovea centralis, or where we will find the highest visual acuity. Okay, seen here from an ophthalmoscope, we have the optic disc, beginning of that optic nerve, macula luda, and then fovea centralis. Okay, again in the retina we have photoreceptors known as rods and cones. Rods will detect in dim light. Cones will produce color vision. So cone starts with a C and color starts with a C. That tends to help out. So once light hits the retina and then the photoreceptors pick this up, we will synapse through the bipolar cells onto the ganglion cells. The axons of ganglion cells exit the eye and produce the optic nerve. So here is going to be the outer layer of the retina. Light hits this pigmented layer, synapse with the rods and cones. They go through bipolar cells onto the ganglion cells. The axons of ganglion cells move towards that optic disc, creating the optic nerve. Here you can see all these ganglion cells producing that optic nerve.